Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Sarsky. I'm one of the consultants with the CART Consortia, and I also have a fantastic grade partner working with me today. I had the privilege of working with Marianne for a year, and I'm going to let her introduce herself before we get going.
Hi, my name is Marianne Baden. I've been a teacher at Star Catholic for 20 years, and Chris and I are working on these math kits, and I'm very excited to do this.
So as Marianne mentioned, we're going to present to you a sample, a potential grade 2 math kit for the new curriculum. It's not required. It's not something that this is the only kinds of things that we could use in the classroom, but they are things that we have found that might sort of generally make your life a little bit easier as you tackle this new curriculum. And that would make, especially if you've got larger classes, a little bit less running around to do. And a lot of this stuff we're going to unpack with you as the session goes on. Anything that we show you that needs to be printed, you will have access to that at the end. So you might just want to just sit back right now and jot a few notes down if there's something that comes to your mind as you're going through. But other than that, you won't be needing any printing until the very end. So remember, this is just a sample, just a suggestion of things that we think are commonly going to show up over and over and over again that would benefit a number of different outcomes that you're going to be teaching. And we recognize that the new grade 2 curriculum, you're going to 1,000. So it's like taking grade 3 and bringing it back down to grade 2. So you need to go and talk really nicely to your grade 3 grade partner pals and say, I need some of your stuff that you used because that's your end goal for grade 2 this year. So there are some significant changes that are going to occur there. Keeping that in mind, though, remember that your students aren't coming from the new grade 1 curriculum, so they don't have some of the proficiencies that they would normally have coming into the new grade 2. So there's still going to be some time to have to go back and do some basic skill reviews just to make sure that you see where they're at. So what we'd like to do with you today is go through the contents of what we put into these kits. We'll take a closer look, and by that, we'll kind of dissect the individual pieces a little bit for you. And Marianne will share some of the ideas that she had as far as how, these could be used and were used even in the grade 3 class that we did this year. And since we did do some of the new curriculum this year, but also kind of leveled out of the 1,000, a lot of the things that she's going to talk about are very relevant for grade 2 because that's really what you're going to be doing. And then we'll show you some possible sites that you can purchase some of the things at, or if you already have things in your classroom, then obviously you don't need to go and buy anything for the kits for the students. So we're going to start with this sort of an overall, just a general view of what we could see in the grade 2 kit that has been put together. So I'll let Marianne take over from here and we'll unpack it as we go.
Thank you, Chris. So we put a few items in there for the grade 2s. We put the subtraction and addition cards in there because they need to be proficient at that. So it's good review and practice for them. We've also included money cards that show the different coins. On the back side of that, it shows the dollars and cents. We've included the dominoes, which are always good for all kinds of math activities. We did get the colored ones from the store there. There's subitizing cards. We've included 3 different colored dice. So the students can do 3 add-in operations. We've also included a bag of money. The kids seem to enjoy having the real play money that they can work with. We've put some different coins and bills in there, and we'll go through that more in the presentation. We've also put a clock in there. This helps with the kids telling time, but they can also skip count, and once they start to talk about multiplication, using it to multiply by 5. We have some reference cards in a Ziploc bag there for reflections and flips and different benchmarks that they need. Also in here, we have some shape cards. They have the different colors on them as well as shapes. And they're really nice because they're clear, so the kids can put the colors on top of each other, and then it shows what color is made by putting green and blue together, or whatever combinations. And we have put in a number line going to 1,000 in there for them to use the reference.
Okay, and we also have our place values.
Yeah, the place value cubes we've put in there. The kids in grade 2 do need to go up to 1,000. So we do have the 1,000 cubes in there. However, if they are adding them together, they may go over 1,000. But for grade 3, when they get to grade 3, they have to know to 1,000. So those cubes we may not assess, but we do want them to be familiar with the different place value.
We'll unpack these a little bit more for you later, just to touch a little bit more on what Marianne was saying, but keeping in mind, there's a big leap in this new curriculum. From grade 2 goes to 1,000, but grade 3 goes to 100,000. So it's almost like saying, so what happened to 10,000? Like, where did it go? So just keep that in the back of your mind as well. These are also in the kit. We have some foams, which are used for symmetry. They're also used for, you can use these for the transformations that you're going to be doing, but also for fractions. That's the other big piece that you have. And because they're really pliable, they can fold them in half and they just bounce right back again. So there's lots of different things that they can check and double check with that. Do you want to talk about these charts and measuring tapes there, Marianne?
We used the number chart in there. We went from 0 to 120. So the kids can kind of see, you know, what happens after I get, what happens after I get to 100. So that they can see how the pattern continues. We've also included the measuring tape so that they can actually go around and measure things, not only flat surfaces, but round surfaces. And the hundreds chart is good to have in there because it can also help them with their adding and subtracting until they get more proficient at that.
And the decomposing composing numbers is something that could be used all the way up to grade 12 and it does get used, but this is a great one for them again to do their addition, subtraction, to model the different forms that they can show you with each number, finding missing add-ins and so on. So there's lots of opportunities for them to use this over and over again. This measuring tape is one that Marianne found, but it has some really unique qualities to it. I'll let her talk a little bit about that, why we like it so much.
We like this tape measure because it does have imperial and metric on it. Also, as well, it's color coded with the decimeters, so kids can see what a decimeter is with the patterns and the color coding on there. And
the fact that it has imperial isn't overly significant for grade 2 because they don't do imperial in grade 2, but they do it in grade 3. And it's most measuring tapes have both on there, but if they don't, that's fine. But this was the bonus. This was letting them see sort of that skip counting by 10, what it looks like. So this is if you can find something like that, that's great. Okay, want to talk about this one as well, Marianne?
Okay, so the money bags were something that I used with grade 3 a lot this year. Not only did they become familiar with the bills, but they did a very good job at adding them. And what we did is we made the money bags for the kids. So this is the combination that we used. Often we'll throw in an extra one to make sure that they're counting. And then while they're doing their work, if they need other coins or money, we have the bank at the back, which is the teacher's money bin. And so then they can trade in money. So they're learning, you know, how to make change as well when we're doing that.
Okay, the subitizing cards are part of the package that's in there. And these are cards that they're maybe underused. This is something that we want students to be really proficient at. So even if they have 5 minutes where they've got something time to spare in a classroom that they can grab a partner or even on their own, but you know, just turning a card over and what do they see? Do I see 8 fingers quickly or am I counting them one at a time? So they should be able to subitize, in other words, what value they're seeing. And as they get more proficient, they can turn 2 over. What's the sum? What's the difference? That type of thing. We want mental thinking to be really, really quick. The faster they can subitize, the more proficient they are at their number facts. And that's something that research has shown over and over and over again. And if they can become really proficient at them in grade 2, when they move into grade 3, we then use them for multiplying. So there's so many different ways that we can use this. You could even do them for place value, right? Write out the largest number by turning over 3 cards or 2 cards or whatever you decide they want them to do. Okay, want to talk about these ones, Marianne?
So like we were saying, for grade 2, it does go up to 1,000. We have made these cubes, the wooden cubes, you can purchase, and then we just drew the numbers on there. So we have the ones, place value, tens, and hundreds. We have included the 1,000 cube. For grade 2, they don't need to be assessed past 1,000, but I think the more familiar they become with that, the easier their time will be in grade 3.
Yeah, and if they roll these, and you could definitely differentiate this, you could make a cube that just has 1,000 on all 6 sides. This one actually goes up to 6,000. If you're trying to see who can go even closer to 10,000, that's fine. And again, as Marianne said, you wouldn't assess these, but it would give us an opportunity to move students beyond a little bit of 1,000 and just in writing the number, if nothing else, so they can roll their dice and can they order the number using place value accordingly and write it correctly. These are the cards that we've included, and these are just great reference cards for the students. They could be things that they're reviewing. It could also be symbols that they're using. You pull out the dominoes. You can have 2 dominoes drawn at random. The sum of them really quickly. Again, that's that subitizing thing. Can they quickly do that, and can they put the correct symbol in between, you know, which is less or greater, whichever it is you want them to look at. They're also looking at this terminology throughout the year over and over and over again. So again, you know, you could give them items and you could ask them to even hold up a card. You know, what are we seeing? Is this one shorter or longer? That type of thing. Hula hoops is another really sort of cheap manipulative that we could have in the classroom, and that would be a great Venn diagram. And research has also shown that Venn diagrams are one of the highest order of critical thinking we can ask students to be engaged in. It also gets them out of their desk. You get them on the floor and you get them doing things and working with a partner, and then going around and just asking them to talk about their math. What did they do? Why did they do what they did? Why did they put the things in that they did? So you could even ask them, you know, if they're familiar with patterns, what do they think the rule is for the yellow one? What do they think the rule is for the red one? You know, this is all blue, this is all triangles, and these are our blue triangles. There's your common ground. So the thinking behind that, and if it's not that they put in the center, what did they put in the center and why? And then letting them talk through that. If it's false thinking, it's a good way for us to see where their thinking is at and what areas we need to jump into. Money, it's hard to read what's on the card, but for this first circle, they were asked to just given a bunch of money in a bag and asked to put money that's less than 80 cents in here. And then they were given the other circle, which is money that's greater than 25 cents. So it could go up to $100 if I gave them that, but it also has to be divisible by 5. So it's something that they can skip count to that number in 5, right? They don't have to know multiplication tables to get to that. It's something I could skip count to 5. There's going to be some numbers that fit into both of those, and those will go in the center. And this is just an example of what you could use. There's endless number of ways that you could use these hula hoops for math facts and things that you're doing. Our terminology card, I want to talk about that one, Marianne.
So when the kids are working with word problems, sometimes they're confused on what operation to use to solve it. So here's just some cards that they can refer to. Some of the words that are included in the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division word problems. So just gives them a little a card that they can check on to see what operation should they be doing.
And keeping in mind, we're not doing multiplication and division in grade 2, but it doesn't hurt for them to have that. They can always be familiar with it because they're going to be seeing it again. The same card is in the grade 3 kit as well. And these are cards just to sort of move ahead, like where did we get some of this stuff? These cards came from Staples. That's not saying that you have to have these, but given that money is a pretty big emphasis right now, they need to understand money. They need to be really proficient in it. You've got quite a few expectations, not maybe implicitly in the math, but it comes to the math through the financial literacy. So they have to be able to skip count by 20s and 50s and 25s and so on. So again, money would knock off a number of outcomes in number, in that number sense, um, but also learning the money as I go along. So in these cards, they have the coin on one side, the value on the other, but they also have dollar and cent values on them because they'll have multiple coins on them. They don't necessarily have to go to that degree, but there is addition of coins in grade 2. So this would be a great supplement for them to have, or you could make your own. Okay, do you want to talk about this one? So the 120s chart we have in here, you'll notice goes from 0. I didn't start it at 1 for a particular reason. In your curriculum, it says that students need to start their number lines at 0, which normally they do. But also we run into problems sometimes with students just sort of memorizing that the last column all ends in zeros, and they don't see the patterns. If you put the 0 in, you see the pattern emerging of the zeros, the multiples of 10. You see the pattern emerging with the multiples of 1 and 2 and so on. So it's another way to look at it, but it also kind of just takes them away from the traditional that we've always seen, that this row goes to 10, and 10, 20, 30, 40. So it just makes them rethink a little bit about what they're doing. And so I think that's one of the pieces that we need to make sure that students are aware of. The subitizing cards, they're in the kit. We just put them in a plastic bag, but again, these are really important. And if nothing else, if you don't build the kit, at least print those out and get them ready to go, because those are things that kids should have. These we've given you as templates. I would just laminate them, and then so that you have them permanently, and then kids can reuse them. They could use dry markers, but they can also put their coins, they can put their place value markers on it with whatever you're using. Lots of different ways to use the composing and decomposing of numbers. Okay, want to talk about these ones, Marianne?
Okay, so these are some items we got at the dollar store. The picture here for the layering color and geometry cards, it's a little easier to see, but they do need to know the colors and what colors are made by combining. And it also shows the shapes on there. So they're kind of learning 2 at 1. But yeah, those are very handy. And as well as the clocks, we got those in a pack. They come in a pack of 4. The kids do need to know time, but as well, the clock helps them with skip counting and will eventually help them with their multiplication of the 5 times table. The colored dominoes, kids love colors, but they don't have to be the colored ones. We just got the small pack from the dollar store. So any dominoes that you have would work. And also we included the number cards in here from 0 to 100. And there's many uses they could do with those. They could put them in order. You could hand them out to the class and then get them to stand in a number line. Like where would they, who would be next in line?
And a lot of the things that you're seeing here too are a little bit of a transition, like a bridging time right now for you to handle some of the students coming into your new grade 2 curriculum from the old grade 1. So this is something that they learned to count to 100, but they also had to know the words, the numbers all the way to 100. They had to be familiar with that. And so having this available in grade 2, at least for a couple of years until kids are really on board with this new curriculum, might be nice to have that for review. As with these cards, it's the shapes more than anything, but color is something that they built on in grade 1. Now they're doing that in kindergarten and grade 1. So again, this is more of a transition piece that we would suggest maybe having in something like that in there for sure. As is the clock. They're not doing time in grade 2, but as Marianne said, for skip counting, these are incredibly important, and it does introduce them to at least the hours, and that's a piece that they do need to be somewhat familiar with. They don't have to learn to tell time, that comes in grade 3, but they do need to know sort of what's a full hour and what's a half hour. So again, I could use that for skip counting, and I can do that when I'm talking about my fractions that are going to be introduced in grade 2. Okay, want to talk about these?
And yeah, we have the addition and subtraction cards. We want the kids to be proficient in grade 2. So that gives them practice and they can pull those out anytime to, work on those. We've also included the 3 different colored dice. So if each student has the 3 different colors, you can use it for place value or when we're doing add-ins, all different kinds of activities. We also have the foam pieces in there. So they can use those for fractions as well as slides, rotations, twists and turns. And they're nice because they're the foam pieces that are pliable. So you can fold them and they'll still stay in their shape.
So we also were cognizant of the fact that in the same way that we did for grade 3 going to 100,000, we're cognizant that grade 2s having to navigate to 1,000. So that's why I said go and make friends with your grade 3 teacher because you want to go borrow a lot of their materials that they use because that's what we did in the original grade 3 class of going to 1,000. So what we want students to be able to idealize is to see what does 1,000 really, what does it look like, first of all. So we took adding machine tape and kind of rolled it out across the down the hallway, and took a meter stick and marked off the first 100 centimeters. And so you see them marked off in here. Above these, I'd actually put them in cents as well, so that you're starting to transfer this to money. I would do the money first before I would do anything. So I would change this to money and have those sort of paralleled at the same time so that they see that they need 100 pennies to get to 100 cents. And that just sort of verifies the pieces that we had when we were learning grade 1, and now we're moving into grade 2. Beyond the 1 meter, we mark the meter, but we did not do all of the centimeters that are in between, so that we get to 1,000 centimeters, so that they have a sense as how long does 10 meters, like what is that? Like that's 1,000 centimeters, but how long is that really? So that they even have a sense of when they see it in the hallway in your school or wherever you are, that they can remember that approximately from here to here is about what 1,000 centimeters looks like. So they have a context for what 1,000 is. That's something that we have to work on a little bit because kids don't have a good context for 1,000. What does that mean? We originally used just sort of library tape, blank bookbinding tape, and ran it down here. It's probably faster in hindsight. When we made the second round of these, we simply put them through the laminator, and you can run 6 or 7 of them at the same time through. So it's a lot faster and sure a lot easier than doing them one by one with the tape. So just a thought. If they are laminated, then you can have students write on them. You could give them a card and say, here's the number 700. Where would I find it? Where would I find 723, right? So it's finding those benchmarks and using the benchmarks that I'm aware of to see where I would put those numbers. So those are important things for students to be able to do. And they could just stretch that out in the hallway, or they could do one in the classroom, or whatever works for you. And these are the cards that we were referring to that they could use just as review. They could use that with a student. They could turn them over and they could explain to another partner what that is and give an example, whatever you think would work well for them. But again, it's just as a quick reference for them when they're working through things so that they have an idea of what a reflection is, or what a translation is, or what a rotation is. You're doing transformations in grade 2, and then they don't do them again until grade 6. But when you're doing the transformations, especially rotations, I would strongly suggest using tissue papers, having a straight edge. Doesn't have to be a ruler. Anything that's a straight edge would help. I often would use even with junior high and high school students because they just have a tough time with spatial ideas, seeing how this spatially is going to work. Just using a popsicle stick even and putting their symbol on the end and using that to rotate. Sometimes that's just as easy. So they've traced it with their tissue paper, put it on the end of a popsicle stick, and then go from there. But starting off with something as complex as this would be a bit much. What they should be able to do is identify what a rotation is. They should be able to look at a picture and know that this was a rotation. To get this shape to look like this or this shape to look like that only could have happened through a rotation. It couldn't have happened by sliding it. It couldn't have happened by putting a mirror in between. And that's really, I would say, where you want to go with grade 2. You're not big into having them create their own necessarily, although kids will want to, they like them. Myra's would be another great source for in here. That'd be another place for them. They'd love playing with those, so that'd be a nice place. And you could use some of these symbols, right, as reflections as well. They also go through tiling and measurement with non-standard units, so just giving them some samples. They do bar graphs. They also do pictographs. And just keep in mind that a pictograph, in theory, a true pictograph uses the same symbol for the different columns or rows that you're creating. If they're going to use different symbols, like you're going to use different fruits, the fruits shouldn't be distorted by size, because then it just makes it look like one is more than the other. I could make two great big peaches and have two really tiny bananas, and really a banana is bigger than a peach. So just those kinds of things, keeping that in mind. And then just a part of a counting table in here, just to help them through some of the more difficult numbers. Some of your terminologies. And then we've left some blank ones. These are in Word form when you download them. So if you have other ones that you want to create on your own or add a couple more in, feel free to do so. So again, here's your template for your decomposing and composing. And this last one is a number line. Again, because we're going to 1,000, it's not so readily available to have those in the classroom. And teachers that we've been working with in groups already have said, well, you know, we're going to create one that goes all the way around the classroom to get to 1,000, which is absolutely wonderful. It's great if you can do that. But you're maybe not have the space, the room, or the walls to necessarily do that. And so this is an app that you can use. It's free. Just because you're watching the video doesn't mean you can't access this. Just click it on during the video. And what you can do here is you can create a number line of any size you wish. You can create it in any increments that you wish. You can start it anywhere you wish. So I wanted to know if they can count from 500 to 600. I start at 522. And can they go up to 570 or whatever you decide. So you can choose whatever you want. You can also do fractions with it, which in grade 2, you're not going to do a lot of that. So whole numbers, you can have a blank one where you put it in. And if you want to put it in yourself, you can just go in and click this on and put it wherever you'd like. And come on, work with me here. And then it gives you a blank square. So I could even just put blank squares throughout and ask them to fill it in. There's another option for you. I can also have them create skip counting by certain values, whatever I decide I want it to be. I can have it skip count for 5s, I can count it by 10s, whatever I want this to go to. So this is a great number line. You have complete control. You can also send it to students. You can download it in Google Classroom. So you can give it to them if they've got their own laptops that they can work on, etc. All right. So lots of possibilities there, and it helps with the 1,000. It also lets you differentiate, because if you've got a group of kids that are still working from 100 to 200, but you've got a couple of high flyers that are going from 800 on, then you can really differentiate this graph for them. And here's a picture of your finished kit. Everything's inside that kit already. And this is where we got it from Dollarama. This is the size that we got. There's lots of different sizes. We're looking for something that fits into a cubbyhole or into a student's desk very easily and doesn't take up half of the width of the desk or the cubbyhole. So this is quite manageable and quite easy for them to have. Marianne had an addition that we didn't put in here, but we were talking about it afterwards and based on the games that we were playing. Do you want to add that in, Marianne?
Yeah, there's a lot of games that we played during the class, and there's always the struggle of finding a game piece. So we were thinking if you put each kid had their own game piece in the kit. Of course, we don't want them to all be the same. So it could be part of an art project where they make something that will be their game piece to keep in their math kit. But there's all different kinds of things. And just that way it's handy. Again, saving time. We're not having to hand out something different to each kid every time, especially with the big classes this year.
Yeah, no, that was a great idea. And that's something we should have thought of as the year went on. Place value templates. I'm just giving you these because I'm focusing very much on money, because money should be our starting point and really not just like for a week or two. I know the name of them. I want to go better than that. So if we start with money instead of base 10 blocks for regrouping and adding and whatever, then once we move to base 10 blocks, it becomes so much simpler. So we can use a penny as, what do I need to regroup to? If I had 11 pennies, I'd regroup it so that I get a dime and 1 penny left over, and so on and so on. And then they can also make equivalents so that the small unit that is in our base 10 blocks becomes the loonie. You can show them how these become the cents and how cents work. They're not assessed on that, but nonetheless, they could see how that works because they see it in the store every day when they go to a store. So those are pieces that we can do. So what you have here are just a number of different templates, and the templates at the top, the title, when you download them, the title tells you what's on the template. So you don't have to open every one of them up. Just look at what the title is, and it will tell you which coins or coins and bills are on that particular one. I just laminate them, and so then you'll have them, the kids can use them over and over and over again. So they all vary in different size, different denomination values, and this works very well for grade 2. So again, pick and choose. Keep in mind that students don't know money. Don't assume that they know money. Don't assume that they know how to make those transfers of 5 pennies to a nickel and so on. So it's important for them to really become grounded in that, because you can't talk about financial literacy that's in your health and wellness until they have a sense, a really strong sense of how money works and how they're going to use it. So this is really important for them to have. Anything that we've missed, Marianne, that you can think of?
No, not that I can think of right now. I think we've got it covered.
Okay, so let's look at the print masters. This is where you'll find, when you click this on, this is where you're going to find the files. So here's the place value mats, and here's all of the subitizing, all of the cards that we showed you. Everything is in here. You just need to download a copy for yourself, and then you can print off whatever you do. Some people have asked me, especially for grade 1, grade 2, kindergarten, do I laminate the cards? And the answer is I haven't laminated them. I haven't even laminated the subitizing cards, and some of my subitizing cards are over 15 years old. If they got really bad, then I would just print another set. But to be honest with you, the kids use them all the time and they're fine. So that's a lot of cards to cut, and I don't know that you really want to go there, but I guess it depends on what your philosophy is. If you prefer to have them laminated and just keep them that way, that's entirely up to you. So if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to connect with either your ARPDC rep if you are not in a CARC zone. And even if you aren't in a CARC zone, just feel free to give Marianne or I an email, and we'll be glad to answer whatever questions you have if we can. So hopefully this is helpful for you to get going on grade 2. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.